Specflow tutorial part 3 Specflow configuration. In part 2 we have learned about the Specflow requirement and a plugin. So in this session we are going to learn about what is unit test provider, different types of the unit test provider for the Specflow, what are different packages for a Specflow to download, and what is a Specflow configuration and it's a configuration option. So let me start this session. So when we talk about a Specflow unit test provider, now the first question is what does it mean by the unit test provider and how the Specflow is going to use this unit test provider. So unit test provider helps to execute and identify the test cases. So Specflow is going to use this unit test provider to execute and identify the test cases. Specflow is going to support 3 different of the unit test provider: NUnit, XUnit and MS test. So whenever we want to use a unit test provider, we need to download a Nuget package. Now the question is, what does it mean by the Nuget package? Nuget package is nothing but a library, and whatever the methods those are present can be exposed with the help of the Nuget package. So whenever you are going to use a unit test provider, we need to download a Nuget package. So we have 3 different type of the unit test providers, and we have 3 different type of the Nuget packages for all these unit test provider: NUnit, XUnit, MS test. So whenever you want to use a unit test provider, you can use either of them. You can use NUnit, XUnit and MS test as well. Along with unit test providers, we also need to download the Specflow tools.ms build generation. So whenever we are going to write the test cases in the feature file, so this ms build generation is going to generate a .cs file behind the feature files, and that .cs file is going to read by the system or these NUnit to execute the test cases. Let me flip to Visual Studio to understand with an example. Right now I am going to use a Visual Studio 2022, the current version available at this point of time. So we have different options: clone a repository, open a project or a solution, open a local folder, and here we have another option that is create a new project. So we are going to create a new project. Let's select this, and here we have a different templates. So these templates are going to help us to create a default project. Right now we have an unit test projects console. So these all are the different type of the templates. So you don't need to create a project from the scratch. Whenever we are going to use these templates, it is going to provide a default templates for us, and it is going to download a few Nuget packages as per the template which we are going to select it. So we are going to use the NUnit along with the Specflow. Select this, click on next, and here we need to provide the project name. So I am going to say project name is Specflow session. Okay, here we need to provide the location. I am going to change the location. Let's select the Specflow project, and inside the Specflow project I am going to create a project. So if you want, you can change the solution with name, but I am keeping it as default as provided by this particular NUnit test project templates. Let's click on next, and here we can select a different framework. Right now I am going to select this .NET 6.0. If you want, you can select this .NET framework as well. So let's select this .NET 6.0. Click on create, and it will create a Specflow session project for us. Specflow session project created, and we can see it has also downloaded a default Nuget packages because we have selected a NUnit as a template. So what we are going to do is, first we need to remove this NUnit because we are going to download a Specflow.NUnit Nuget package. So right click on say and say remove, and whenever you want to add a Nuget packages, we need to click on the project and say manage Nuget packages, and here go to the browse, and we can search for a Specflow. So we have different options. Specflow, we have the Specflow ms build generation, and we have the Specflow.NUnit. The current version at this point of time, the stable version is 3.9.7, and if we want to see the pre-releases or the beta releases, then we can select this particular checkbox, and we can see we have a different beta versions at this point of time. So but we are going to select this stable version. So let's select this stable version and click on install. It is going to install a Specflow NUnit test projects, or you can say NUnit Nuget package for us. So if we commit here inside the packages, we can see we have this Specflow NUnit, and it is having a few other dependent Nuget packages it has already downloaded. We can see it is having this NUnit, Specflow and a MS build generation as well. So you don't need to download this particular Nuget package separately as well as the NUnit. So that was the reason behind it. I have deleted the previous NUnit. So we have downloaded a different Nuget packages. So if you talk about the configuration file, so let's click on this Specflow project, and here we the add, go to new items. So we have a different options. One option is feature file for a Specflow configuration, and the hooks we are going to learn Specflow hooks and the feature files in the remaining session. Right now we are going to target about the Specflow configuration file. So this Specflow configuration file is nothing but a .json file. What this Specflow configuration file is going to have, this is going to have the information related to, or you can say the configuration related to a Specflow. Take an example of in which language the feature file are going to identify. We can write the test cases, whether you want to write the test case in the US or in plain English language, or you want to write the test case in the French or any other language. So those type of the configuration we are going to write it here inside the Specflow configuration. So right now we have this Specflow 1.json as a default file. What you need to do is you need to remove this particular one, and we need to save file name as a Specflow.json. Otherwise we are not able to get the configuration during the runtime. So let's click on add. So we have this Specflow.json file, and you need to keep this Specflow.json file in the root. Here is the project, and whenever we are going to add it, you need to keep it in the root folder of the project, which is this Specflow. So if we select this and go here to the JSON or to the particular file, let's commit here and say invoke. So we have this Specflow config.json file, and this Specflow.config.json file is having a schema of your fields or of the options which we can add it. But right now it looks more complex. What you can do it with the initial stages. You can go here to the configuration, and when we commit here, we have this particular Specflow.json examples. So whenever you want to add the languages, we can select this language, copy and commit here and paste as well. If you are not getting the default options here, whenever you are going to create this Specflow.json file, then you can add the language, feature name, and convert this to EN. We can have the US as well to make this particular language, feature related language, as a US language, which is this English. So we will be adding a few more options later in the sessions, but right now we can say we have this particular language as an option which we have added it inside this Specflow.json file. Another thing you always need to set for the Specflow.json file, right click on this, say properties, and we can see we have this particular options, copy to output directory. It is having three options right now: do not copy, copy always, and a copy if newer. So you need to select copy always and a copy if newer, because whenever you are going to make slight change here in this particular JSON file, whenever you are going to execute the test cases, we want this Specflow.json file in the bin directory. If you keep this as a do not copy, whatever the things you are going to write it, those will not be copied to the bin directory, and we will not have the changes at the runtime. For that you need to select this copy always. You can also select copy if near. If you are making any change, then it is going to copy, otherwise it is going to copy always. So I always select copy always. Whether you make a change or not, it is going to copy to the bin folder. So when we talk about the bin folder, say right click here, we can open folder in File Explorer. Here we have the bin folder inside the debug and a net 6.0. So whenever we do a build, so let's have a build here. Build is successful. If we commit here, so we can see after having a build, we have a different DLLs and we have a different folders available here inside this net 6.0. So whatever the test cases are going to execute it, that will be done it here inside this particular bin folder. So that is the reason behind it. Whenever you are creating a project and you are having this Specflow.json file, you need to mark that as a copy always, so that whenever we are going to do a build, it is going to copy this particular Specflow.json file here in this particular folder. And if we scroll it little down, we can see we have this specflow.json file, and whenever we are going to execute our test cases or whenever we are going to execute our project, the changes of this particular specflow.json file will be available at the runtime. So we can select a different unit test provider. If you want, you can select a XUnit MS test, but I have selected the NUnit as well. And we can also create a specflow.json file. So with the help of the specflow.json file, we can set the configuration of the Specflow, we can set the languages, and we can set few more options that we are going to learn it later. You need to make a change in the property of the specflow.json file, which is this copy to output directory. So whenever you are making any change and you select this copy, always it is going to copy the specflow.json file in the bin folder. So that is the reason behind it. We need to mark this copy to output directory as a copy always, otherwise we will not have changes at the runtime, whatever the changes you are going to do it here. So that's it in this session.